Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who just got back from the royal wedding. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. It was magical. I watched it in my wedding dress.
Why did you wear your fascinator back in the studio here?
I don't even know what that is.
You know what a fascinator is?
No.
It's one of those like weird hat things.
One of those weird hat things.
Yeah.
And then, listeners, you just need to know that Daryl has put his wrist on his head and waved his fingers about.
I think by you revealing that you don't know what a fascinator is, reveals that you actually were not invited to the royal wedding.
I was not invited, no.
David Beckham represented soccer, not Taylor Rockwell.
It seems unfair, but yeah.
He's slightly higher profile.
I mean, that said, I have seen many people pointing out that he is a very attractive man. You never want it to be, like, too attractive. So I feel like I would have been the perfect amount. That would have been fine.
Right in the middle.
Yeah.
Right in the middle.
Yeah.
Shall we instead talk the US roster?
Sure.
So the US men's national team roster for the game against Bolivia was announced over the weekend. We'll also talk England roster later on. We'll talk FA Cup final. We'll talk Atlanta United versus New York Red Bulls. But first, US roster. This was a surprise to me. I didn't realise it was going to be so young and experimental.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. I think it is weirdly the case that also, when you start to list the names that are missing, it is sort of like, well, actually, maybe this is about where we are. like if you want to go down that road. But yeah, I think it was to get a lot of second division players kind of across the board. Yeah, it indicates that maybe you're looking at a bit more of an experimental call-up.
So no MLS players, with the exception of Alex Bono and Walker Zimmerman. Because MLS is in session, for the most part, MLS players were not called up to this roster. There will be a change for the Ireland and France friendly. So this is sort of like a weird young roster just for this Bolivia game on Monday. And I'm looking at it as sort of maybe even Olympic qualifying tryouts, but also just let's get these guys into US soccer camp and get them a cap and see what they look like.
Yes. Do you want my idealistic interpretation or my cynical interpretation?
I want first one, then the other.
Okay, I'll go idealistic first. So you can make the argument that this is a way to reward young players who've had good seasons, but maybe not outside of soccer fans. If you're just a casual USMNT fan, if you tune in to watch the national team, you're probably not going to know Andrea Novakovic. So this is a way to, or Novakovic, excuse me. This is a way to maybe get him a little bit more recognition, get him a little bit more mainstream attention. And I think that's good. It rewards young players for the work they've put in, for making career choices that have been beneficial.
Yep.
The cynical part of me wonders is if this is Dave Sarachan maybe responding to the March friendlies where he got a lot of criticism for not giving some of the young players any minutes at all or very limited minutes. And I do wonder if this is him being like, See how many young players I've given debuts to? I have a list now. I can list these in a press conference, just saying.
So let's talk Dave Sarachan for a second. For those who haven't been following the soap opera, he was the assistant coach to Bruce Arena. Then he was acting interim temporary assistant to the regional manager, head coach.
That is accurate.
And he's sort of just knocking along in charge of the US national team while we wait for a general manager and for the new head coach to be appointed.
Yes.
And as excited as you can get about this roster, there's a lot of young, exciting names. Like Tim Weah is on this roster again.
Yeah.
The downside seems to be that a lot of people are still not excited about Dave Sarachan. And they're also, what I picked up in your voice is maybe you're a little wary that Sarachan is angling for the job. And so you can't get too excited about the young roster because then you're also getting excited about a potential permanent Sarachan-ing of the US national team.
I mean, things can be two things, as we are fond of saying. And you can be excited about this roster. You can be excited. I don't think that many people will be. I think given the circumstances, that's understandable. But I think you can be to look at some of these names and faces and to be happy if they get a result and if they look good. That doesn't necessarily then mean that my opinion will be changed about who I would like to take over the job and who I would not like to take over the job.
Yeah.
If they look like this cohesive unit and they look amazing, that's wonderful. And that is a thing that he can certainly put on his resume. And maybe Carlos Cordero or whoever the GM appreciates that fact. I'm just saying,
gets him an extra 1 minute in the interview.
It's going to be tough for me to come around to Dave Sarachan as a permanent manager.
Same here, but I think it's worth not dwelling on that because I'd rather talk about the exciting young players.
Greg Van.
Yeah. Greg Van.
Jesse Marsh.
Jesse Marsh, yes. I'd be all in for that.
Sam Allardyce?
Can I?
No.
Yeah, I've moved on from that now, I think.
Yeah.
One interesting thing to me is when you look down the clubs that the players are listed as playing for on this roster, it's tempting. If you didn't know a lot, you'd get very excited because you go, Eric Palmer-Brown, Manchester City. Matt Miazga, Chelsea. You know, there's a lot of those sort of names, but then you would have to be explained to you that actually EPB is on loan at Kortrijk and Matt Miazga is on loan at Vitesse Arnhem. So there's a lot of players that also, it's almost like their situation looks more impressive than it is.
Yeah, Joe Corona, Club America. Maybe they should have figured that one out.
Yeah, was he listed as Tijuana on the roster?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he's actually been playing for Club America.
He's on a year-long loan, which expires December 31st, 2018.
But actually, that's backwards because that's weirdly a step up, right? I mean, Club America is a bigger team than Tijuana, so he's almost had a loan that's a career progression.
Well, there's that. Yes. And I want to say, if you don't mind, I want to say one more thing about Dave Sarachan because I forgot to say it when we were discussing him. We got some stick last time for not being like overtly anti-Dave Sarachan. We weren't like, this is terrible, this is whatever, he's awful. And I understand why people feel that way. I do. But the reality is, number one, you probably actually don't want to hear us go down that road because then it's just people complaining. Mm-hmm. And I would say to the people who are, I wouldn't mind hearing your informed justifications for why you don't want Dave Sarachan because really, that's where I find...
not in all caps.
I mean, if you want to be all caps, you can be all caps. But I find myself not being motivated by him as a permanent manager. But if you really pressed me on why, I think I could come up. I mean, I definitely could come up with reasons, but they would be kind of short and they would be general, and a lot of them would relate to Bruce Arena. And I think that's part of it. Is like, so I would ask people, like, before you are just like, no, he's the worst. Like, he is not the worst, but he is certainly not the best, and he is not good enough, in my opinion, to be managing the U.S. national team. But that doesn't make him the worst. Does that make sense?
Yes,
you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
But I would be interested if people have, because I know people do have insight into, he's not very good tactically. He's had shortcomings here. I'd be interested to hear that stuff. But we want to avoid the hyperbolic screaming into the microphone, if that's at all possible. That said, I might do it later on when we get to Man United, but we'll hold off for now.
All right. Well, you said the T word. Tactically. One thing that I think has been interesting under Sarachan is that, I think I've said this before, he's basically playing Tab Ramos ball with this US national team. And looking at this roster, I can pretty much guess how the US is going to line up. Maybe not which players we're playing, but I can guess the shape. I think it's going to be a 4-1-4-1 that you could call it a 4-3-3, but it's a 4-1-4-1, same as we've done under Sarachan previously with one striker, because there's only, Josh Sargent and Andrea Novakovic named as the strikers. There's going to be one striker. You can have one defensive midfielders, 3 total central midfielders, and then 2 guys out wide who are hard workers and offer something in attack and something in defence, and this is what the roster screams to me.
Yeah, I agree. Unless it's a back three. It won't be a back three. I'm just kidding. No, I think 4-1-4-1, 4-2-3-1 at times, 4-3-3 at times. All of those are probably good indications of what this team will actually look like, yes.
So here's the big question for me then. If it's going to be this 4-1-4-1, and I'm really confident that it is, and it'll probably start with Novakovic, and maybe Josh Sargent will come on and get his debut for 20, 30 minutes, maybe a half. Where does Christian Pulisic play? Does Christian Pulisic become one of the wingers in the 4-1-4-1/4-3-3, or does he get to play as part of the central midfield?
I'm going to give you a lot of answers, so I apologize. But because first of all, it comes down to how much does he play in terms of these upcoming 3 friendlies? Because we've seen it reported as he's in for this one, and then maybe he'll be excused from national team duty to go do a friendly with Dortmund and then have a break.
I think part of it is the reason he's in the US is a Dortmund postseason friendly. So even though weirdly he's coming from Germany to the US, it makes sense for him to be part of this roster because Dortmund were here anyway.
Yes, exactly. But so the reason why
it's all air miles related.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure that's what it is for Dortmund and for Christian Pulisic. But if it were to be multiple games, if he were here for 2 games or 3 games, I would want to see him as like a number 10 and then see how that compares to him playing as like a winger in a more veteran-filled lineup, if that makes sense. I think my guess is that we end up seeing him as a number 10 in this game. I'm just a little hesitant because that's not something like where he's going to have a lot of experience, or at least he's going to have a lot of training with this squad. So I just want to put him in a position where he looks as good as possible.
So I have the opposite feeling, which is I want to see the 4-1-4-1 look as good as possible.
Okay.
Where the idea is that you sort of set the line of pressure at halfway, and then when the opposition gets to the halfway line, you're sort of all over them. It's like a half-filled New York Red Bulls. If that makes sense. And that works best when you've got someone like Pulisic as your, I'd say, right winger or left winger, probably right winger. I would like to see him playing a role within the team rather than what we did towards the end of the Bruce Arena era, where it really was sort of, let's put Christian in a position to succeed. And I was all on board with that at the time, like get him in the middle, make him the number 10, and he'll carry us over the line. And we really did get that sort of messiah complex towards the end of the qualifying campaign and tried to build everything around him. I'd rather build a system and put Pulisic in it than build a whole team around hoping Pulisic can drag us through.
That makes sense. You're right. Yeah. And I think also...
And I wish I'd argued this in October because it would have been a better approach in the Trinidad game.
Well, the other thing that I don't think you mentioned there, but I'm realizing now is that I had the kind of obvious like square peg, square hole in front of me, and I kept not putting the square peg into the square hole, which is I was wondering who's going to play out wide, because you actually don't have that many wide attacking players in this lineup, whereas you have 3 different, by my count, players who can play and flourish as a central attacking midfielder in that number 10 role. So maybe
I like your optimism that there actually will be a number 10 role. I think we're looking at a number 6 and 2 number 8s.
Yeah. But I think you've got, to name specifics, you've got Julian Green, Lyndon Gooch, and Joe Corona can all play as that like central number 10 attacking player. So maybe you see that in there.
I wouldn't trust Julian Green in central midfield.
I mean, he's in the squad. You never know. I mean, I would not either, but I think if you're looking at their like favored positions, that seems to be either more attacking or as a number 10 for Julian Green. And so maybe you do see one of those players more central, and then you do see Christian Pulisic starting out wide.
Who will we see central then? I mean, the name that jumps out to me is Weston McKennie, who's been back in form towards the end of the season for Schalke. And the name people will want to see is Keaton Parks.
If those two don't start, I would be disappointed.
Yeah. It'd be exciting, right, to see a Parks, McKennie, Pulisic. It really will feel like the future has started when you see at least Pulisic and McKennie on the field together at the same time.
Agreed. And I think there's a decent chance that your 2 starting center backs are Matt Miazga and Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Yes.
And suddenly you're looking at Miazga, Cameron Carter-Vickers, McKennie, Parks, Pulisic. That's a decent number of players in there.
We're on the way, right? We're on the way. Here's my guess as well. The left side is going to be Rubio Rubin. I think it's going to be one of those. He's the Juan Agudelo of this version. Juan Agudelo did it against Portugal, I think, back in the day, November 2017. You essentially have a striker who can do a bit of wing play, who becomes your left mid and is asked to do a lot more defensive work than is normally asked of him, and that's how you get your weird 4-1-4-1 shape.
And I know we can't always put 100% stock into it, but it is also worth noting that he's listed as a midfielder, Rubio Rubin, in this roster. That's
why I think it's happening. 4-1-4-1 all the way. One new guy, Guido. Alejandro Guido, who has been playing for Tijuana, unlike Joe Corona. All I know about him is he's a defensive midfielder. There's a chance we see him as the holding defensive mid.
Sorry, I listed him earlier as an attacking midfielder, I think. I didn't mean to if I did. It was Corona, Gooch, and Green. Okay, no, so that was right. Yeah, and then Alejandro Guido, I think, is one who we see maybe as a second half sub getting 10 minutes at the end.
Is that what you think?
That would be my guess.
Like in a number 6 spot.
I think we'll see, basically, I think what we'll see is the like very young, inexperienced players. Either some of them might start. I think a lot of them will get a couple minutes and get their first cap.
Yeah.
And then they'll be excused from duty, and then you'll have more regular players come in, and maybe some of the players who start in this game will then be relegated to that reserve role.
Fair enough, yeah. What about Tim Weah? He got, 10 minutes or so in the most recent game against Paraguay, maybe more than that. I would like to see not just a run out. I'd like to maybe see a whole half from him.
I mean, that probably necessitates Christian Pulisic coming central. If you want to play him on the right, if you want to go left, then maybe it's Rubin and Weah splitting time.
Yeah, I could see that. Rubin and Weah splitting time, yeah. Okay. That works for me.
Or Lyndon Gooch coming in, who knows? But I'm with you. I would like to see a decent run out for Timothy Weah. I genuinely don't know what I want to see at right back. That's one of the ones that kind of throws me.
I'll tell you what you're going to see. You're going to see Eric Lehigh.
I think so.
Play right back for most of the game. And you might or might not see Matt Olasunde come off the bench. Matt Olasunde is a weird one.
Yep.
Matt Olasunde is with Manchester United. He's been playing for their under-23 team in Premier League 2. As far as I understand it, he has played no senior football.
No.
Right? So it's kind of weird to give him an international debut, and it's kind of generous to call him up to a national team.
Yep.
But I think it's also recognising that he's a player of possible quality, and it's good to get him involved with the national team. And why not? If we're just doing this sort of call up loads of young players thing, why not do it?
Yeah, because I think the other thing to remember with U.S. rosters, especially friendly rosters, is that sometimes there's a lot of politics behind the scenes. And there can be not just politics in terms of like, oh, we want to make Man United happy or something like that, but if he's a player who hasn't gotten many looks at senior level, and they're thinking, oh, we want to loan him out, if you've had a conversation with Man United's director of development or whatever, and that's the plan, maybe calling him up to the national team, giving him that first cap, letting clubs know, oh, wait, no, he's a U.S. international. Maybe that just gets Derby County to see if he's interested in loan.
He's his career a little push sort of to get it going. Maybe.
I think so. I think that's why you get some of these guys getting called in.
Have you seen some footage of him?
I mean, just like the one highlight of him scoring goals and then a few little clips from training. That's about it.
So I watched one of those sort of every touch in a game videos. So he's a right back, but he looks like a centre back in that he's sort of tall and like how young centre backs, especially before they've really filled out, are kind of lanky. He looks exactly like that.
Matt Miazga 2 years ago, basically.
Yeah, just like Matt Miazga 2 years ago. Maybe a little quicker. I saw a lot of recovery speed from him. And he also looked quite sure-footed. So I saw some nice little turns, maybe the stuff you wouldn't expect of a centre-back. So just be prepared when you see Matt Lusande play right-back, you're going to be saying, he is taller than I'm usually used to in a right-back.
Yep. I think that's... If you see him, I don't know if you will. I think you're right that you'll see Eric Lehigh start, and people might be frustrated by that because people are always excited to see the new youngster coming through. But you do have to have a little bit of like veteran leadership in there and veteran presence. And I think Eric Lehigh has also had a decent season, and so it makes sense to also reward him and give him some minutes, knowing that more than likely it will be him on the bench in the next couple games with DeAndre Yedlin starting in front of him.
Because that's probably what's going to happen, right? Yedlin will get called in for the Ireland and France games. I hope someone's watching Lehigh's dog while he's over in the US.
I'm assuming he's got some family doing that one. I would say the left side is the one that I think could be very intriguing because, I mean, obviously there are other left back options in the pool, but I do think that these are kind of your starting left back options right now for the U.S. national team. And so I think it will be interesting to see who starts, who gets minutes, who looks the best between Jorge Villafaña and Anthony Robinson.
So, as I understand it, Anthony Robinson was called up for the last squad, but didn't get any minutes, right? And you said Jorge Villafaña. You meant to say Jorge Villafaña Liga MX champion.
Excuse me, I apologize. Yes, of course.
Congratulations to him. He just won the championship with Santos. I think we'll see Villafaña start as well.
I agree.
And we might just see Robinson late in the game.
I agree.
But I'm very excited for Anthony Robinson.
I agree.
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's pretty much it. But let's maybe explain to people why. Because I think for most people, Anthony Robinson will not be a name people will know about. I can tell you, when you look at the roster again, you'll see Anthony Robinson, Everton. That's not really accurate either.
No, it's not.
He's been on loan at Bolton Wanderers all season, where he was involved in a relegation fight where they just survived. So well done, Anthony Robinson.
Well done. And we talked about, Travis and I talked about this on last week's episode of the Top Drawer Soccer Show. Anthony Robinson being
available on all good podcatchers.
Yeah,
and some bad ones.
Well said. I also want to note, I know it's Anthony Robinson, but when I speak fast, it becomes Anthony. Or then Anthony, but I'm not saying Anthony. I just want that on record. But I think we talked about him as a player who, yes, it was for Bolton. Yes, it's a Bolton team that barely survived, barely stayed up, rather. They were almost relegated, except for like the final day performance. But he was, by all accounts, the standout player for Bolton, or at least one of the standout players for them this season. To the extent that I think my takeaway was I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a full preseason with Everton, or if he does get a loan, it's to a top-tier championship team, maybe a lower-tier Premier League team. But I think he gets another move next summer, and I think it's to a better, more regular sort of squad. And I think then maybe people start to hear about him a bit more.
I think that's right. Yeah, his career is on the move. Yeah. It's also just to keep an eye out for him. We'll maybe get a bit more specific about the game as we get closer to Monday, which is when the US plays Bolivia. He is very much an attacking left-back. This is a guy you're going to see basically dribble his way forward. He'll look like a winger sometimes when he joins the attack. And then his crossing is either magnificent or terrible.
Yeah.
He's capable of both. So there's that to look forward to.
So we've talked about pretty much every position except for goalkeeper. And we have three options there. All right, Alex Bono, Bill Hamid, Ethan Horvath all called in. I am inclined to say that Alex Bono should start. That's my feeling.
I just have no preference. Yeah.
I think my only preference is because Bill Hamid has not cemented himself as the starter for Midtjylland. I know Ethan Horvath got a few starts.
Yeah, he started the last two games for Club Brugge.
Yes, but I think you look
at they won the Belgian league.
Yeah, but how many starts did he get in total?
The last two.
I guess
the first 15.
See, yeah. My point would be that if Timothy Weah started the final game of the season for PSG, that does not mean that he was instrumental.
He's a first team regular.
Sure. So I just think Alex Bono, given the regularity of his appearances, combined with winning MLS Cup, combined with making it all the way to the CONCACAF Champions League final and making some big plays along the way, I think he is the goalkeeper who has probably played himself the most into that starting job in this team.
Fair enough. All right. So overall, how are you feeling about this roster now? We've talked it out a little bit.
I mean, I was excited about it to begin with. I feel like it makes more sense to me now, and I think it was because Pulisic was the square peg in the round hole for me. That I was really trying to make him a number 10. I still wouldn't be bummed out if he were playing as a number 10 because it means maybe a little bit more attack. He's probably more capable of linking attacks and kind of being creative in the center. But I think you're right. It makes more sense to play him in a position where he's a bit more naturally accommodated.
So here's my guess. 4-1-4-1 to start, and maybe last 20 minutes, if Sarakin's feeling confident, we might see Pulisic moved more central into sort of a 4-4-2 type thing where he's underneath a striker.
Yeah, especially if
Sargent and Pulisic could be the sort of 9 and 10 in the last 20 minutes of the game.
That wouldn't surprise me, especially if this is his only game in this round of games.
Yeah. Okay. So worth watching, right? We know that other teams are calling up their World Cup rosters and all that is happening and all that is bigger. But if you care about the future of the US team, you may as well watch this game. Get your first glimpse of Olasunde and Robinson. Pulisic's back. Pulisic and McKennie together, uniting the Schalke BVB stuff.
There we go.
Yeah, it's worth watching. Get excited.
Absolutely. We'll be watching. We'll be back next week to discuss it, but we've got lots of other content to get to today, including a conversation about our friends at The Athletic, Daryl.
Yes, our friends at The Athletic. So you would have heard on the World Cup Group A preview show, we are sponsored by theathletic.com. It is a subscription website with quality soccer content. I want to say it might be the best online soccer content available right now.
I think it's up there.
Quality stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and their model is simple. You've got no ads, no pop-ups, no autoplay videos. That's because it's basically requires a subscription to get there.
They will never pivot to video.
There we go. Thank goodness. Nor should they, because they have so much good content up there. It hasn't even been going that long, and yet there's so much stuff to read, including a very good article by Paul Tenorio.
Yeah.
Breaking news on The Athletic, Paul Tenorio.
So that's the thing, right? It's not just opinion pieces. There is breaking news on there because you've got writers like Paul Tenorio who understand Major League Soccer maybe better than anyone else. He explains the mechanism of, and I'm not going to look at the board where the notes are, the YTF.
You got it.
Which sounds like a naughty word, but it actually stands for Youth Transfer Fund.
Sure.
It's a new Major League Soccer mechanism.
Yes. Which is essentially... We'll not go too far in depth on it. But the idea is essentially it's another like GAM and TAM, but to a lesser extent, designed specifically for MLS clubs to go out and find either domestic or international, but international, like top tier talent under the age of 20, like 20 and under, I believe, with the idea that then you're enticing younger players at a higher level to come into Major League Soccer because you can give them a little bit more money. And I think maybe there's an idea. Well, should we just tease it as Paul seems to have an idea as to why they might be doing that?
I mean, is it that you could describe YTF as youth to flip?
Yep. That's another way to put it.
That's how I see it. It's MLS saying, hey, here's this pot of money, use it to find some under 20 players, and then maybe give them a couple of years in the league and then sell them on and you can keep the money.
So then we don't want to tease it.
No, we don't. But it is worth reading the whole thing because Paul gets into a lot of detail about how it all works and how he sees it going. Yeah? Okay.
Still on the fence, I have to say. Not about Paul Tenorio. I like Paul Tenorio. Having never met him before, I like his work.
Hopefully we can meet him soon.
That'd be nice.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I think I'm against this.
Really?
Yeah, not The Athletic, the YTF money.
I think we've established that we're pro-athletic, but yeah.
Because it's just another young player is going to be in the way of the homegrown players, right?
Yep. And with that, it's another. I think I've seen people complaining that it's another rule that seems likely to be implemented mid-season. So you're not really giving teams time to figure it out, and it seems like it's maybe going to be another one that's implemented intermittently. We're like, yeah, sure, you guys keep that. Oh no, we want a little bit of that transfer fee because that is part of it. As far as I understand, I think clubs will then, if they were to then sell these players down the road, I believe it's another one where they're able to keep 100% of the transfer.
Yeah, they are.
Definitely, you say right up until I don't know, one of these players gets bought by Real Madrid for $80 million, and maybe Major League Soccer is then like, oh, but we forgot to tell you about the Real Madrid clause, where if it's Real Madrid spending over $70 million, then we get 40% of it.
Yeah, there you go. The other part of this that you just mentioned is going to come in mid-season. As I understand it, clubs didn't really know this was coming, right? So you planned for Major League Soccer 2018 season, and then halfway through, MLS is like, hey, guess what, guys? We have a surprise for you. Read Paul Tenorio's article.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they'll all be told.
And I think that I'm against it for that. And then I think I do have the same concerns as you, which is that if Major League Soccer is telling you, a team, hey, here's free money to go sign a player, you're going to go do that, but then you're not going to risk signing this player and not having them play, because then that causes problems, or maybe then young players don't want to come to your club because, the last guy who came to your team didn't get any minutes, why should I come to you? So then I think if you're the Red Bulls and you go out and sign a player, maybe that means, you know what, 18-year-old who is maybe going to make his debut, go back with Red Bulls 2 for a while and we'll give this guy some minutes. I'm with you.
I worry about that a lot. All right, can we talk bigger picture about The Athletic?
Sure.
Kind of an admission that I think you should share as well. I think we didn't realise how big The Athletic was.
100%.
Yeah. So I am now, after it's launched, I am more excited. There are more people already subscribed to it than I realised.
Yep.
Because I thought paywall, like it's tough to persuade people to, pay money to read stuff online. The Athletic, it's expanded into soccer, but they've already established this base of readers and subscribers and reputation. There's a lot of people already all in for this.
And we did clarify that subscribing with the code that we're going to give you shortly, allows you access to all of the Athletics content.
Yes.
So then if you
every last word.
Yeah, so if you already know of them for their football coverage, but maybe you weren't American football, that is, or baseball or basketball or whatever, what have you, like maybe this is the incentive you needed to go ahead and subscribe.
Just to push you over that, yeah. And of course, Taylor and I will be writing for the Athletic as well. My Wolf story is already up there. It got a really nice reception. I was very relieved.
I thought it was really good, especially since Ruben Neves went on to make the Portugal squad.
I had to add an edit. Just to mention that he did not. He made the preliminary squad. He did not make the final cut.
You said thank you before you realized I was being a jerk.
Should have seen it coming. Should have seen it coming. But we also got people sort of saying, "Congratulations, you're writing for the Athletic," and that's when it dawned on me. Oh, it's a big deal. The Athletic is a big deal.
All right. So, with that in mind, if you would like to check out The Athletic for yourself, you can go to theathletic.com/TSS, and that is good for 40% off a subscription.
40%. That's nearly half off.
It is
40%.
There we are.
Athletic.com/TSS. The link will be in the show notes.
Beautiful. Well, shall we move on to a subject that I know is near and dear to your heart, my friend? It's that England national team.
3 lions on my shirt. Yes.
Is it? It looks like a cactus.
Not today.
Yeah. So the England provisional roster had been released. We now have the England final roster.
I think they didn't even go provisional. They just announced 23.
It was just so many rumors that you could piece together the provisional roster. There
essentially, Joe Hart was getting some bad phone calls. Yeah. So the news for England's 23-man World Cup roster is no Joe Hart, no Jack Wilshere, which means we're not holding on to players just through reputation, even though they've played badly for an entire season, and we're not taking anyone who's half injured and we're not sure if they'll make the cut. I think that's the message I got from this roster is Gareth Southgate has a plan. He's only taking the players that fit in his system, are fully fit, and reputation doesn't count for anything.
So then you're saying, are you including that when you look at the standbys then? You're thinking the people that are included on the standby list maybe emphasize that point more? Or are you including the standbys in
the only difference so Livermore, I think, is on the standby, and he's an example of a player who is not particularly popular with, the average England fan, but he's a guy that Southgate trusts and a guy that can play the system Southgate wants to play. But someone like Adam Lallana, I think, is someone who's taken more of a risk on. But the fact that Lallana didn't make the final 23 and say Ruben Loftus-Cheek did instead, Loftus-Cheek less experienced, I think is a testament to how Southgate is doing business here.
I agree. Yeah? I agree entirely. Because I think the majority of the coverage I've seen of the England national team, it seems to be negative, not surprisingly, but it seems to be a lot of, I think, phony outrage about players who weren't included.
Phony outrage?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard so many pundits talk about how bad Joe Hart has been and how Joe Hart isn't reliable and he was Mr. Number One is no longer the number one. And yet when he's dropped, it seems like suddenly there are all these people saying, how can you drop Joe Hart? He's your most veteran, he's a leader, he's experienced. And it's just like a week ago you were talking about how he's none of those things.
It's just easier to be against things, right? You've got to be against his inclusion, then you've got to be against his exclusion.
Yeah, I think so. And I'll probably get some stick for this one, and so be it. But I wasn't surprised that Jack Wilshere wasn't included in this roster, and people seem to be very concerned and confused as to how you don't include him. And again, that felt a little bit more like today. Belgium released their roster, Raja Nangolan not included, and Belgium fans are completely at a loss, very upset because he, I think, could be one of their most important players in very specific situations. And for him not to be included, I get why people would be angry. With Jack Wilshere, for me, it was just more like, yeah, okay. I'm not surprised by that.
Injured most of the season, yeah. And he came back towards the end, but there's a track record of possibly he gets injured again in the future. Right?
And then the final...
And by the future, I mean in June.
Yeah. And then also on top of that, it's just to your point, it seems like Gareth Southgate... I think I'm just kind of confused as to how people are missing that, your point. It's that Gareth Southgate is picking a roster for his plan. He has a plan for how he wants England to play. I'm going to assume he has plans for how he wants them to play if they're against Tier A versus Tier B versus Tier C opposition and how they're going to go about doing that. So he doesn't find himself in a situation like against Iceland where they have no options other than Marcus Rashford go try some stuff. And I think with that, you look at this roster, and that is what I think he's doing, is he's picking the names that he thinks are most capable of executing his A strategy and his B strategy and his C strategy.
It's actually a nice, flexible squad. So I look at the names and I see, for example, theoretically 3 right-backs. Kyle Walker, Kieran Trippier, and Trent Alexander-Arnold, who, by the way, is uncapped, but I think we've all seen his quality throughout the season. He's going to have a Champions League final.
Yeah.
So it's all...
That was another one where I kept seeing these headlines, mostly from the typical tabloids, saying, Southgate chooses uncapped teenager or whatever. It's who's starting in the Champions League final? Yeah. Calm it down.
Yeah. But I think the presence of 3 suggests to me that Kyle Walker is going to play centre-back. So Gareth Southgate has been playing 3 centre-backs. He seems to have settled on this thing of playing Kyle Walker as the right centre-back because he just has that extra bit of pace. He's comfortable on the ball, will play it out alongside John Stones. So I really think that you're going to see an exciting England team that's capable of carrying the ball out of the back in a way that we haven't seen for years and years and years.
And forgive me if I'm beating a dead horse, but like that right there is, to me...
It's a dead lion.
Well, let's hope not. But I would say like that right there, I agree with you completely that Kyle Walker is probably going to be your starting right center back, but I still hear pundits I like saying, but against tougher opposition, he's got to go to right back, right? Like you can't start him as a center back, and that still feels like...
He's especially there for tougher opposition because he's faster than the other guys.
Yeah.
He will have the pace to just cover any space that needs to be covered.
But that feels to me like the thinking of... but they're going to go to 4-2-3-1, right?
Yeah,
like that's what they have to do.
You got to settle into what you know.
And so it still feels like people are, I'm going to keep this analogy going apparently, like trying to fit them into shapes that they don't belong in. And it just seems like, but if you look at it from the wider angle of, yeah, he could be a right back, maybe he will be, but it also makes more sense to keep him as a right center back. You've got 2 other very capable right backs there. You've got a stronger defense than you've had in tournaments past.
And then on the left side, it looks to me, you got Ashley Young, who's an interesting sort of maybe left wing back choice. Danny Rose is a more traditional left wing back choice. But there's also Fabian Delph. I really love the inclusion of Fabian Delph because, one, he can play left wing back as he has done for Manchester City all season, mostly thanks to Mendy's injury, right? But then he's also can very much play any of those 3 or 4 central midfield roles that England need. So you've got a nice flexible couple of players with nice flexible attributes in terms of their positioning. I love this squad.
Yeah, and I think you're justified in loving this squad. There are reasons to have doubts, obviously. It's England. But, I mean, like, put it this way. People might be critical of, like if you're another one who maybe just tunes in for the World Cups, if you're not so familiar, and you might look and be like, Fabian Delph, Ashley Young is still around? And then you're realizing, yeah, I mean, those 2 guys start pretty regularly at left back for the number 1 and 2 teams in the Premier League.
I think Jordan Henderson's the one. Like some people will be like, you're going to build the midfield around Jordan Henderson? Because that is what's going to happen. He's going to be the Busquets of England, kind of. And you can... maybe look at England and mock them in that way, but then you remember Jordan Henderson is playing that role for a Liverpool team that, again, is in the Champions League final. Right?
Yeah. So then, if we were being too positive, are there things that give you pause for concern? I hit it hard, just to annoy you. Cause for concern, Daryl Grove?
Weirdly, no.
Are you feeling just pretty settled?
Because one thing I was...
Let me flip this around then. Let me ask you this. Like, without being too harsh here, like, what would your brother be upset about with this lineup?
Honestly, so he would say things like, "Oh, not enough world-class players."
Okay,
you know what I mean? Because there's no obvious like his Gerrard, his Lampard, his Michael Owen type figure. You know what I'm saying? I think that is the criticism from. I think in England you get a lot of people who pay attention to soccer. I'm not talking specifically about my brother here, but there's a lot of people who pay attention to soccer but not deep attention.
Yeah.
So they'll be in for the World Cup but without the knowledge of watching England in the previous year or so and not really knowing that, say, Jesse Lingard is picked a lot and covers a lot of ground and is really good at finding space and making things happen. But you just see, Jesse Lingard, it's not that exciting. You don't see the role that he's capable of performing in that team. So there's a lot of guys who have important roles who are not necessarily stars in the traditional way.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, because I think if you continue to persist with this idea of like, it's going to be a 4-2-3-1, and you look,
it's not. It's going to be a 3-5-1-1/3-4-2-1.
But if you persist with the thinking of, everyone's playing a 4-2-3-1, they're not. But if you have that thinking, then you look at this and it looks like that team that couldn't get past Iceland, and it doesn't look that different. And then the debate is like, it's going to be Harry Kane or Rashford or Vardy, and where does Raheem Sterling fit? And this doesn't really look that exciting. But if you think of it from a perspective of, no, they're doing different things than they've done in the past, and maybe they're flying a little bit under the radar because it's England, and people tend to dismiss England very cynically, I would say. I feel like they're poised to make a decent run in this tournament. That said, I said that in 2014, so who knows?
The one thing I really like as well, I'll make this the final thing, so I could go for hours on England. We'll have a World Cup preview eventually of them, right? Harry Kane, I feel like, is an important player for England, obviously. And I was always worried that there wasn't a replacement for him if he's suspended or injured or what have you. Like Jamie Vardy's a very different player, right? He's more of a on the shoulder of the defender and like dragging wide, making runs wide, as opposed to being able to do that hold-up play that Harry Kane can do. Rashford definitely can't do that, and I'm guessing we'll talk more about that when we talk about the FA Cup final and how he performed. The inclusion of Danny Welbeck, I think, is wonderful because even though he hasn't, blown any lights out in the last year or so for Arsenal, I think he's such a good...
No, he did when he hit the ball over into a floodlight. I think it's when he did.
He is such a good all-round player, and by that I really mean that he is capable of holding the ball up, right, and the ball sticking to him. He is capable of laying the ball off. He is capable of running in behind. Like, he can do everything pretty well to the point where he can be a good... replacement for someone like Harry Kane or a good replacement for Jamie Vardy without necessarily being your go-to guy.
That might be a hill I let you live on by yourself.
Okay, that's fine. But I think that's a good reason to include someone in a squad is that he can replace a couple things as opposed to he might light it up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm with you. Okay, I'm with you. My final thing on this England roster, I just cannot get over this. I know he's included on the standby list, Tom Heaton. But you have 4 goalkeepers here included in that standby list. How is it possible that 2 of England's goalkeepers play for Burnley?
Because Burnley finished 7th in the Premier League, and they pretty much Tom Heaton and Nick Pope split time throughout the season, right? Because Heaton got injured, and then Pope stepped in and performed so well, he got England attention.
I just can't get over. Like, I'm totally with you, right? It's just the idea of a couple years ago saying like, oh, England's goalkeepers at the 2018 World Cup. It's going to be a goalkeeper whose team were relegated, a goalkeeper who fired 2 managers in a season and struggled, and then Burnley's 2 goalkeepers. You'd be like, something has happened. Things have gone off the rails.
Anything else to add, apart from your amazement at Burnley's goalkeeper inclusion?
Just go Burnley, man.
It is great, right?
Yeah.
Tarkowski, the defender, is also on the standby list. So we could get as many as 3 Burnley players in here if injuries go Burnley's way.
I'm okay if that doesn't happen.
Anything else to add before we move on from England?
No, let's move to England then in the FA Cup.
Yeah. So you were not at the Royal Wedding. You were not at the FA Cup either.
I was not.
Were you watching it on the television?
I think Barry Glendenning on the Football Weekly summed it up best because he watched the FA Cup and the Scottish Cup and then also watched the Royal Wedding and was somehow the most entertained by the Royal Wedding. He didn't love that. But I think that's a fair takeaway.
So Manchester United 0, Chelsea 1 at Wembley in the FA Cup final. It was not an entertaining game,
Nope.
I believe is what you're getting at. I have a theory on why it was not an entertaining game.
Because it was Man United and Chelsea, and they're both defensive with managers who are trying desperately to win some silverware?
Yes.
Yep.
To be more specific, I think Jose Mourinho had a plan to shut down Chelsea. He succeeded in that plan, except for the 20th or so minute where Chelsea won a penalty and scored it and were 1-0 up. And then he continued with his plan to sort of shut down Chelsea and maybe nick a goal. Right? So he never got his team out of that sort of caution first mode, even until the last 10 minutes or so when they really didn't properly arise from their slumber.
I agree with you completely, except that, and this is probably my fandom kicking in, I'm just going to ratchet that intensity up to say, but this is not a Chelsea team that are like scoring infinite goals and setting the world alight. Like, this is a Chelsea team who haven't qualified for the Champions League, are probably going to need a new manager or get a new manager at the end of the season. And by all accounts, like, some players have even quit playing for their current manager. Like, this isn't a team that I feel like needed to be shut down the way United seemed to come out and really react as though, like, this is like the best attack we're going to deal with. We've all got to be really, really like conservative and keep out all of our numbers behind the ball. It just felt like a strange approach. Mourinho
has that history with Eden Hazard, right? He had Ander Herrera man-mark him very literally one game. He did something kind of similar here, right? Herrera really followed Hazard around a lot. Sometimes passed him off to Matic, but then would just take him straight back. But in the end, Hazard wins and scores a penalty.
I mean, I think he was the best player for both teams, of either team, on the day. And I do wonder if maybe giving that much attention to Eden Hazard, who has had an okay season, but not like he wasn't even in the talks for PFA Player of the Year, put it that way.
Yeah.
And I just think that but suddenly if you have a player kicking him, maybe you just turn that, spark that flame a little bit. Maybe he kind of reminds you why he's so good, because I think he did that.
And then he would just look around the field and be, who should I pick on? I choose you, Phil Jones.
Yep.
I'm coming for you.
Yep.
So this game absolutely turns on. Yeah. Eden Hazard winning a penalty from Phil Jones. It's a bit of a break from Chelsea, right? Then Cesc Fabregas plays a nice over the top through ball that I think Phil Jones just thinks, I'll take a step back and collect this.
Yep.
He underestimates how fast Eden Hazard is. Hazard nips in front, and I can't tell if it's a deliberately really good touch to play it ahead of himself.
I would assume it is.
Or if it's just like randomly he just manages to get something on it and get to it.
That could also be.
Yeah.
But I think if it's Eden Hazard, I'm more than willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and say it's probably a really good touch.
And then so Jones tries to keep up with them, and he's sort of got an angle on him,
Tries
right?
to is a phrase.
I mean, Hazard is quite far to the right of the goal. He's not really at a great shooting angle. But then just Jones goes in with that big slide tackle that takes Hazard down. Definite penalty kick.
But definite red card?
So the new rules are you don't have to give a red card for denial of goal scoring opportunity if you have awarded a penalty kick.
Well, the other key phrasing here that was adjusted for this year's laws of the game, if there is an attempt to play the ball to stop a promising attack in the penalty area, then you can give the penalty, you can give a caution for stopping that attack, but you don't give a red card if there's an intention to play the ball.
So if Jones had sort of just put his cleats into the middle of Hazard's chest, way away from the ball, then you'd give him the red and the penalty.
Yes.
Because it was just it wasn't a good slide tackle, but it was an attempt to slide in and block Hazard from shooting, right?
Or if you have this is not going to resonate, but like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did it many years ago. But the idea of like, oh, that guy's on a breakaway, all I can do is clip him to stop him, and I'm going to get. Then it's like you're not trying to play the ball, you're absolutely just clipping his foot. Now you're getting a red card versus sliding through, and Phil Jones just barely misses the ball, but does not make any contact with the ball at all, but he's still trying to make a play on that ball.
Poor Phil Jones was trying. Yeah,
I mean, it definitely counts as an attempt.
He's lucky they named the England squad on Thursday and the FA Cup final was on Saturday.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
Why did he go to ground? Why not just try and sort of shepherd Hazard out of bounds?
I think we kind of worked on this theory together, although maybe you had it before we came in, but because I was really curious why minutes before that, it's kind of a very similar situation on the other side of goal, where Eden Hazard basically gets around Phil Jones, has a shot, but I would say it's from a tighter angle, and it's saved by David De Gea's foot. I think it goes out for a corner to Chelsea. And my feeling was, why not just kind of keep forcing him to the line and force that shot again? That's what I think he probably should have done. But I think your point as a defender is that maybe that's not something you can do in the moment.
Yeah, and also if you've sort of at least allowed Hazard to get around you enough for him to get a shot and De Gea has to make that foot save, you've sort of failed, right? Yeah. If Hazard's got a shot on target, you have not helped your keeper. Even if you've limited him to the near post, it's still dangerous enough that it's Eden Hazard. I think you couple that with the fact that Phil Jones knows it's his fault that Hazard has even received that ball because he stepped back waiting for it to come through. You got to make up for your mistake, right? So he's trying to make up for his earlier mistake of letting Hazard get past him, and he's trying to make up for the immediate mistake of not winning the ball when he should have won it when it came through. So I think it was just a desperation. I use this analogy a lot, but the Will Smith in I Am Legend, like, I can fix this.
Yeah.
Trying the slide tackle,
spoiler
no good.
Alert.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert for a terrible movie. The thing, I don't disagree with you, and I'm not just trying to be argumentative here, but I still believe that if you are a central defender, especially a Jose Mourinho coached central defender, I don't know if I believe that letting the player get the shot off is the worst thing. Because if they're shooting at a tight angle where they can really only shoot to the near post and your goalkeeper's at the near post, then that shot is effectively never going to go in because you're making them shoot in the exact right position for you.
I think there's no question that Phil Jones made the wrong choice, right? Because there was no way to make a good tackle from that position. Like, he did his best to make a good tackle and ended up chopping Hazard down.
So then you're saying it's not like an intellectual, like, oh, I need to make a play on this ball. It's just more so like, oh, I got to make a play on this ball.
Yeah,
gotcha. Okay.
With Phil Jones' face.
I mean, he makes it a lot.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, you could argue he makes it all the time. But
so the other problem for Man United, it's not just that they've committed midfielders to defending Hazard. Like, Herrera's a guy who can join the attack, join in, make things happen, right? It's the absence of Romelu Lukaku.
Yep.
So Lukaku did not start this game. I believe some sort of injury, came in for the last 20 minutes. Instead, United went with a front two.
I mean, he's been injured for like the last month. But I think they thought he might be back to full fitness in time for this one.
I see. United went with a front two of Marcus Rashford and Alexis Sanchez. And to me, that for some reason did not work out.
I mean, you mean because they didn't score and failed to get any really good shots on target?
Yes.
Even if Phil Neville says they did. I don't know why that annoyed me so much. I tweeted about it today. It drove me nuts. That he was praising Marcus Rashford for a great shot that went right at Courtois.
Yes, I remember that.
But I think it also drove me crazy to hear Jose Mourinho frustrated that Marcus Rashford and Alexis Sanchez, specifically Rashford, like, weren't out-and-out strikers in the Romelu Lukaku mold. It's like, yeah, you know that. Like, why did you think they would be?
So this is a problem to me with United, is they don't have a replacement for Lukaku, the guy who can be the sort of target centre forward, but who's also so smart he can go and do all the other things as well. He's really quite a complete player, right? Whereas like Sanchez is sort of a a winger who plays as a forward, and I would classify Rashford as weirdly the same sort of player. I think of him as a wide attacker or an attacking midfielder who also happens to play as a striker. Like, he's not a guy who's going to hold up the ball at all.
No, I think if you were looking for a two-striker combination where you're looking for interplay and fast running off the ball and kind of charging at defenses, that's where I think he fits. But if you're looking for him to just be a Lukaku replacement, I mean, for like physical reasons alone, that's never going to be Marcus Rashford.
He's all skinny and stuff.
Yeah. But he also, I think, looks to turn and wants to run at people, and I'm not sure that is what United are looking for.
I texted you about this, right? In the first 5 minutes, Man United did a very slow pass the ball around, build up, take no risks, just hold on to the ball thing. And they had the ball for like 3 or 4 minutes, and you can tell that was Mourinho's thing, right? We're just going to take it easy. Something will come. No need to risk it. The ball goes into Rashford. He immediately takes the ball, turns directly into N'Golo Kante, tries to dribble, and N'Golo Kante comes out with the ball. Yeah. So Rashford was always the weak link in terms of holding on to possession.
Yep. And so I think what it comes down to in games where you've got two more defensive teams than attacking teams is the individual performances. And I think for some of the names you've already mentioned, I thought that ball from Fabregas was excellent to Eden Hazard. I thought Eden Hazard on the whole was probably the best player. And I thought N'Golo Kante really came through and performed for Chelsea and shut down a lot of different things from United.
Anytime United tried to dribble or pass down the middle, N'Golo Kante was in the way.
Yep.
Yeah. I think I saw someone tweet that all 17 N'Golo Kantes turned up today.
So here's my question I asked to you, and I'm going to try to refrain from answering, because I think this might be my fandom talking. I sort of feel like Chelsea, without the Champions League, likely getting a new manager, some player drama, I still feel like they're in a slightly better position than Manchester United heading into next season.
I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because it's May, and we don't know what will have happened by August. I'd argue Man United are in a better position because they know who the coach will be. And Jose Mourinho is going to be the coach at the start of next season. And he's got a summer to try and fix what he sees as the problems, which, from what I understand, are sort of the buy-in type problems, right? Wasn't there the whole thing where he was complaining about, a couple of weeks ago, he was complaining about, you see why some of these players don't play now, right? Talking about like Martial and Rojo and guys like that.
Yep.
Whereas Chelsea don't even know if Antonio Conte is going to stay or not.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think he won't is the latest, but then that's been the latest like 15 times.
Here's the other thing. Chelsea are not in the Champions League. So there's a very good chance that Chelsea lose Eden Hazard this summer. There's a good chance there's a lot of high-end Chelsea players that won't want to be playing when they're not in the Champions League next summer. So I think Man United are in a much better position than Chelsea.
All right.
But Chelsea have an FA Cup.
They do, for what it's worth.
Anything else to add on this game before we move on?
No, I'll avoid a rant. I said I would. I said I would. I wanted your opinion.
I felt like you don't fully trust my opinion, but you got it anyway.
I do. I still think that there are very, very big question marks / problems for Manchester United that I don't know if a summer of buying players is going to solve.
I think that's going to be the question, right? If Mourinho is able to spend money on the type of players he likes and build a team that's a very Mourinho team, and they all buy in, you're still talking about a team that finished second in the Premier League and made the FA Cup final that could take that next step.
Could.
All right, so if the Chelsea players are looking to have a celebratory meal after winning the FA Cup, the Blues could do a lot worse than ordering Blue Apron. Blue Apron is the leading meal kit delivery service in the United States. We'd have to invite them over here, I guess. Many people know what they do, but they don't know about the type of meals you eat when you cook with Blue Apron. We do, though, Taylor. We've ordered Blue Apron before, and we have made the meals at home.
We have indeed. But some of the ones we've got upcoming, Daryl Grove, I know you've done some of the research, but they make me more inclined than ever to do some cooking.
Are you thinking salmon and spicy orange salsa with quinoa?
Yes.
Or as my mum pronounces it, quinoa?
Quinoa. Yeah. Quinoa. I mean, yes, but like I think we've said this before about Blue Apron, but it's worth repeating, is that like I've cooked salmon before, but it is the sort of salmon that it's like salmon with some dill and asparagus. That's a meal, but it's not anything different. It's kind of what you grew up cooking, or how I first learned to cook it is how I cook it. So Blue Apron
You didn't add spicy orange salsa?
No, not so much. No.
There you go.
That's not a thing that I would ever think to do. It reminds me of I think John Hamm's character on 30 Rock, where he's an excellent cook, but he's not really. He just has been told he is because he's so handsome. I think he cooks salmon with orange Gatorade. That's about what I would maybe attempt. Maybe not so much the orange salsa.
So to confirm, there's no orange Gatorade recipe with Blue Apron.
I would hope not.
But you do get the wonderful recipe cards with step-by-step instructions. Mourinho would love it. You have to do exactly what it says on the card, and you get a beautiful meal at the end of it because you get all the ingredients as well.
I could just picture him like looking at a slightly frazzled Phil Jones, like, it said dice, not cube. Like, you haven't bought into the full system of cooking. This is not going to work.
So our listeners can get 3 free meals with Blue Apron. You get your first 3 meals for free if you go to blueapron.com/TSS.
That's blueapron.com/TSS. A link will be in the show notes. Blue Apron, a better way to cook.
A better way to cook. I was hoping I would get to say that part.
In your face. But you do get to talk about Atlanta v. New York, and there's lots to talk about there.
So I only watched 2 games this weekend. I watched the FA Cup final, and I watched Atlanta versus New York. And if I was going to watch one again, it would be Atlanta versus New York.
I think that's fair.
Yes, very exciting game with all kinds of drama. We can say that Kamal Lawrence, the terrible thing that happened at the end of the game, what we've read this morning, he is stable, not critical. Everything is okay.
Yep. And same for Tyler Adams as well.
Yeah, Tyler Adams had that swollen knee that I think is not going to be such a big deal.
I know that you added some new candles to your shrine to Tyler Adams just to make sure he'd stay healthy. So that was good of you.
Okay, before we talk about this game, can we talk about the Tyler Adams transfer rumor?
Sure.
So Tyler Adams, he's one that might get added to the US roster when it gets upgraded for France and Ireland.
Yep.
The rumor that we saw reported in Metro, which I think is a New York paper, is that Tyler Adams could be on the move to RB Leipzig, the sister club, I guess you would call it, the energy drink sister club in Germany.
Is it not the British tabloid Metro?
No.
Okay. That's what I thought it was.
They're 2 different things.
Okay, cool. All right, that makes me feel a little bit better about that one. Yeah, and I think
Metro, the British tabloid that they give away free on their subway, would not care what Tyler Adams was doing.
That's fair.
You'd have to be linked with Arsenal for them to care.
But that explains further. That's why when I first saw that rumor, I was very confused. It's like, really? That's okay. I would have thought you were going to go with Hazard or something like that, but sure. But yeah, I think it's a move that you and I have been okay with for a while, and I think makes a lot of sense for him now, especially because RB Leipzig have a history of taking lone players or young players and giving them minutes and giving them an opportunity to grow and play well and develop and score goals or become key players for their team.
Plus, I don't know if anyone else has noted this, but Naby Keita, the transfer to Liverpool, has already been agreed. He's their all-action midfielder who really does put pressure on people, but then is quite good with the ball. I think Tyler Adams would be a replacement for Naby Keita.
Yep.
He's not quite at that level, I don't think yet, but something to aim at maybe.
And it's worth noting RB Leipzig missed out on Champions League soccer as well, so they're another one who maybe they'll lose some players and maybe they won't be quite as attractive as they would be if they were in the Champions League, but that also means maybe they're looking for more realistic signings as opposed to, they're going to get Tyler Adams, but they're also going to get some other, £40 million or €40 million midfielder who's going to, Tyler Adams is then going to back up.
Let me put this to you. What if he doesn't go to RB Leipzig, but instead goes to, or gets loaned to Red Bull Salzburg in Austria, in the Austrian Bundesliga?
I think what I always go back to with young players like Tyler Adams is that if it seems like that's a deliberate decision, as in, we're going to loan you to RB Leipzig, but your development plan is 1 year on loan to Salzburg, so you can work on these 3 aspects of your game that we think are a little bit weak, and then you come back in, you get a full preseason. If those have developed to the point where then we feel solid in giving you minutes for RB Leipzig, that's what I want to see. If it was just sort of we did go out and sign a €30 million player, how about you go on loan? Then I'm a little bit more concerned.
And we'll see what happens next year. I think you're right. Yeah, if they can put a path in front of him and he makes sense to him, then go for it.
For the second reference to it, that Travis Clark show, I think in that one, I kind of talked a little bit about my feeling on loans, which is that I used to think of loan moves as that's how that ended. Because it's just, and I think it goes back to being a Man United fan where so many players go on loan and then it's and they're signed by that team or signed by another team.
Man United are very different to most teams though, right?
True. Yeah. But I think also just when you think about loans from the perspective of just what I said, that if Daryl Grove has trouble enunciating, so I'm going to loan him to a podcast where they talk really loud. He's going to learn how to enunciate, and then he's going to come back in.
Where are you going to send me?
I don't. Probably the Cooligans. Alexis needs challenging. Shots fired? I didn't mean for there to be shots fired. Daryl said that.
I think technically shots fired at Christian.
What?
You're saying he's not challenging
I'm saying he's not yelling.
Oh, I see. Like in a decibel level.
A little bit, yeah. But no, so I think if you're sending players on loan to get not just minutes, but to get a specific type of minutes. We want you to learn how to better pass the ball out of the back or control the ball under pressure or transition from attack to defense. We need you to work on that, so we're going to send you to a team where they need that type of player, where they play that type of system. That makes more sense to me, given that it's RB and RB and RB. I feel like they all kind of play similar systems. I
should have paid attention to Salzburg and what they do. I'm just going to assume that they play a high-energy pressing style, the same as New York Red Bulls and RB Leipzig. I'd be very, very surprised if they play a sit-back and counter type thing.
I would say so, especially because
it's on brand for the energy drink.
Yeah, right? And first of all, good point.
I genuinely think that that's part of the idea with them playing that pressing high energy style is that it fits their. I think I've blown your mind over that.
You definitely have, because that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, nobody's like, I'm going to drink a Red Bull so that I can sit quietly. Yeah. like that's not really what's happening.
Jose Mourinho, Man United could get bought by chamomile tea.
Yeah, that checks out. Sleepy time tea, the Jose Mourinho, or buses. But I was going to say that even going back to when there were the rumors that Jesse Marsch was going to go coach RB Salzburg, I think what it ended up being was that he was going there to observe. So even if that he's going to go there to coach because they're the same system isn't true, what is true is that he went there to observe. My then idea would be that he went there to observe because they play the same system, and so he's learning nuances or different ways of implementing that sort of pressing system.
Fair. Okay. To the game?
Sure.
Atlanta United.
I forgot that's where we started with this.
Atlanta United 1, New York Red Bulls 3. There was VAR. There were disallowed goals. There were actual goals. There were 2 red cards, but then it turned out to just be 1 red card.
Yep.
I don't know where to start with this game.
I mean, should we start with VAR in general? Should we talk about some of those decisions?
Yeah, okay. Can I give you my take on the Jeff Laurentowicz red card that was given, then reviewed, then rescinded. The Josef Martinez goal that was, the train noise happened, but then the referee reviewed and it was disallowed. I think both are 100% correct decisions, but it's one of those things where it's weirdly correct but pedantic in a way. Like the Josef Martinez goal, I could see in a pre-VAR world, that goal would have stood. Because if you haven't seen it, what happens is he kind of clips Tim Parker on the way through and they're challenging for a ball. Parker goes down. Martinez goes around Mira. It's a nice move, actually, to get around the keeper.
It is.
And scores. I think in a pre-VAR world, Parker's just left complaining on the floor and everyone's like, be stronger, Tim Parker. And Martinez is the champion and rides off and it's 2-0 and Atlanta are winning that game.
Not that it makes that much of a difference, but I'm not even sure I saw Parker complain that much. He just kind of went sliding, and then I just saw him get back up. I didn't see anybody, because that was what I look for in those types of moments. Is that player screaming and looking around?
Right, so that underlines my point, really, that Parker's just I lost that battle.
Yeah.
Right, he just disappointed himself as opposed to complaining and saying that there should have been something called.
Yep.
That goal would have stood pre-VAR. But when you watch it, Martinez does clip the heels of Tim Parker. It's a foul. That's what sends Parker to the floor. So therefore, the goal should be disallowed.
Yep. And I think maybe this is me coming at it from a slightly ignorant approach. I'll be fully honest there.
So the usual.
Yeah, of course. But I think I saw Benny Feilhaber tweeting about this. I think Brad Guzan said something similar, which is that the complaint isn't necessarily with VAR, that we're using VAR, that, the call went against us, that's unfair. It's how it's being used and how frequently it's being used. That it seems to be a little bit we'll use it here, but not here. Brad Guzan's quote, I think it was Brad Guzan said, when it was initially explained to us as being implemented, it was going to be once every, we might use it once every 3 games. And his point was now we're getting it three times a game.
3 times every 1 game.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think
which is about right for this game, right?
Yeah. And so, actually. And so I think if you're a player who was told, we'll use it infrequently, but it'll only be for major decisions that are potentially game-changing, a goal and a red card or 2 red cards are game-changing. It's just maybe when it feels it's just really subtle and you're technically correct, but does it necessarily need to be used then? I think that's where the problems, or at least a lot of the public complaining, is coming from.
So, how do we fix this then? Because I think we're all going to have to just accept that things are going to be technically correct, but you won't find out for a minute, or you've got to accept the imperfect version of soccer we used to have, where decisions were sometimes wrong, and Tim Parker is just left lying there wondering what happened, right?
Yeah, and this is where, honestly, this is what I meant when I said I'm coming at it from a position of ignorance, is that, if you go back, and maybe it was even 4 in this game, because I think there was an early offside call, it really does make me feel if you watch them again, they're all probably correct and they're all probably the right decision.
They definitely are.
And I think the issue then is, I guess they have to be, right? I think the issue then is just sort of that it's being used so frequently, and it's being used frequently in a way that maybe we didn't expect it to be, and it ends up being minor, like seemingly minor infractions. Like the clip, you could argue, well, maybe that happened before, but because of that, it's not like, oh, there was a blatant like elbow to the face, they reviewed it, now you get a red card that's like deserved, quote unquote. And I think that's part of it, is that for fans it just feels like, okay, nothing can happen anymore because everything's being called. But in reality it's not. It just feels that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if you had the power, would you change things and make the bar higher so it was only for really serious offences? Or would you keep the bar somewhere where, like, say, the Joseph Martinez, somewhat accidental, it seems to me, trip on Tim Parker, from which he gained the advantage in the goal, should be reviewed and punished, essentially?
I think I'm probably ignorant when it comes to, like, the minutia of instant replay and VAR. But my opinion is that you probably keep it the way it is, and I think it's because
let people get used to it.
Let people get used to it, but let people get used to maybe the way you're using it, because we've heard officials now, and I think it happened in this game, basically say, I want to let the play continue, even if I think it's like with the Jose Martinez one, the ref said, like, I knew it was a foul, but I wanted to be sure, and I know VAR. Like, he was like, I think he said, like, I was very confident that he had, like, put hands in the back, he'd done something to cause Tim Parker to fall. But I let play go because he knew he had VAR, so that he can go back and look at it. And so I think that's where it's getting used, and maybe if there was just a little bit more explanation of, we're kind of letting stuff continue.
So yeah, maybe refs just need to get tougher and just trust their instincts a bit more and call it the first time. Right?
Yeah.
And if it turns out they're wrong, then they're wrong, right?
Yeah.
But if you think Martinez has fouled Parker, just blow your whistle.
You're right. I think that is actually the solution, because then you are just sort of like, guinea pig is the wrong term, but it is very much like, I know this goal isn't going to count, but I know I'm 99% certain there's a foul, but I can be 100% certain if I let the goal play and then I use VAR.
Yeah.
So I'll let it go through. But if you're a fan, you don't know that decision has already been mentally made. You think, oh, we scored. Oh, it's being reversed. And yeah, maybe you're right that maybe it should just be, you're not going to be so criticized for not going to VAR, just blow for the foul. Although then you're going to get a bunch of pundits saying, well, you got to let that play continue just in case. So I think no one's ever happy 100% of the time.
Should we move on from VAR and talk about the actual soccer in the game? I want to start. We're not doing thumbs up, thumbs down, but I want to just recognise Bradley Wright Phillips.
Sure.
So not only does he score the 2 goals in this game, he doesn't win the penalty, I don't think.
He does win the penalty.
He does. He wins the penalty and scores 2 goals as the Red Bulls win 3-1. It really dawned on me fully. I think it was like, I'd seen a bit of the sun before, now the sun is in the sky, that Bradley Wright Phillips is the absolute key to the New York Red Bulls press.
Yep. It's funny you say that. I smile because maybe 3 weeks ago I was like, I know he's very good and I know he scores lots of goals, but I'm just never that excited to watch Bradley Wright Phillips play. And I think it's full credit to you for pointing out the different things he does to help the press.
Bobby Warshaw initially pointed it out, and he sort of helped me realize.
So you with citations, I guess. But then, in this game, you can see him doing that sort of defensive job, and then obviously getting in the right position to get on the end of some crosses.
So it's not just the finishing, right? It's I think he sets the direction of the press. Like he decides which way he's going to send the opposition, and that decides where the rest of the Red Bulls go to press and win the ball back, to the point where, like, you could maybe upgrade Bradley Wright Phillips to replace him with a superior finisher. The Red Bulls would be a much worse team because they would have a player who's not sort of so savvy and so drilled in the Jesse Marsh pressing system. This is a guy that, he's 30-something now, right? He didn't grow up pressing. He didn't have any of these, weird Red Bull systems. He's really learned this kind of later in his career and is absolutely excelling at it.
And I think because he's excelling at it, he's also helping other people improve their game or just fit into the system. Because I would argue that Royer, I think if you put in a headline-grabbing name as your starting striker for the Red Bulls, maybe Royer, his performances dip a little bit. Same thing for Kaku. Maybe he's not quite as strong a performer if you get somebody in who's going to run and take on defenders and then shoot from distance and maybe not lead that press and organize things a bit more. Exactly.
Or Marcus Rashford.
That would be the one.
Here's the other way that Bradley Wright Phillips is so important to the press. The one time he doesn't do it is when Atlanta score. Did you notice this?
No, I did not. So I'm not surprised, though.
So he goes up for a challenge with Jeff Florentowicz. This is because Atlanta take the lead, right, in the 20th something minute. he comes down and he turns around and complains to the ref that I think they give a foul against Bradley Wright Phillips, right? So he's complaining to the ref. Atlanta take the free kick while BWP is distracted because of ref complaining. And that's the only time that Atlanta managed to work the ball straight through the middle because Phillips wasn't there to stop it at the start. I'm not saying that to blame him because I understand that you can't 100% be in charge of the press all the time. But the one time he's not doing it is the one time Atlanta are able to release the pressure and go through the middle.
Yep.
Which is a scary thing, right?
I also appreciate that the way that the past few weeks have gone, it feels like Major League Soccer are really getting some rivalries really firmly established in there, because I think there is no love lost between Red Bulls fans and Atlanta fans. Same thing for Atlanta fans in Orlando. That was kind of already the case before this most recent game. But it does feel like suddenly Atlanta have some teams that maybe they're going to relish beating more than others.
And Red Bulls Atlanta's a great one because of the similar styles, right? It's both high energy pressing type stuff. Anything else you want to talk about this game? I've got one more thing that I was paying attention to.
Most of mine is about the commentary. So sure, what have you got?
Well, one big thing I noticed is that much as Tyler Adams marked Maxi Morales when Red Bulls played New York City FC, in this game he was tasked with mostly following Miguel Almiron. There were so many weirdly enjoyable off-the-ball foot races because Almiron would be sprinting to get into space or to go and receive a ball, and Tyler Adams would always be either alongside him or just behind him, and they're both two quick guys, right? So they were just at pace running around the field after each other the whole game.
I feel like I like the idea of that matchup occurring years from now in the Champions League with them on two different teams. I guess it would have to be if one is chasing the other down.
That could be very possible. Yeah.
You got to have goals, Daryl. You got to have goals.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Not from this game. I've got a few other quick little things.
Please do.
It's not thumbs up or thumbs down, as we said, but I'm still kind of at a loss for these stories that Gigi Buffon might be moving to PSG.
I have trouble believing it.
You have trouble believing it for which reason?
Just because he seems so Juventus, and that I thought when he retired from Juventus, that would be it.
Well, $7 million a year, or $7 million something, maybe euros. He can't
need the money, right? He's got so much money already.
Yeah, but I think maybe if you're Gigi Buffon, it's an opportunity to try something different at a time when I don't think that many people are, like, Juve fans, I don't think are going to turn their backs on him because he's gone and played somewhere else.
True.
So I feel like maybe he kind of has a hall pass to go do what he wants. And then on top of that, it does give you an opportunity to make some more money playing not that Juve have already strolled to the title for 7 straight years, so similar situations, but maybe it's an opportunity with a team that obviously can spend some money, so maybe you think maybe it's one more shot at the Champions League somewhere else. That's what I'm guessing. It still seems like a strange move because he's just so tied to Juve.
Yeah, I'm not into it.
No, and I've seen a lot of people pointing out that Parma, which is, I believe, his initial club, original club, have returned to Serie A, 2 straight promotions.
That would be a better place to
So maybe
go, right?
that's a place to go to end it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What else has been happening? I know there's a lot of interesting little World Cup stories going on.
I mean, there was Nainggolan being left out of the squad. I think I alluded to that earlier. You had Alvaro Morata being left out of the Spain squad. Maybe that one's slightly less surprising. And then the only other thing I had of note, which has been, I think, much talked about, was the situation in Italy. Lazio losing out of their final Champions League spot to Inter Milan, who got it. The narrative has been that it was Stefan de Vrij conceding a penalty against basically playing for Lazio, conceding a penalty. Inter Milan score that equalizes, they go on to win. That was what they needed to get the final spot. De Vrij has already agreed to a move to Inter Milan, so it's immediate, just tons and tons of headlines.
Yeah.
But there's a very good breakdown in The Guardian, their online publication, where they kind of explain that so many other things went wrong in that sequence that it's De Vrij essentially trying to make a last-ditch play.
So there's no match fixing.
No, it's basically, we've talked about this so many times, that he was the defender closest to the attacker when the infraction occurred, but there's 4 other people who were at fault that he was then trying to cover. So I mentioned that only because it seems like the narrative is going to be, there's some suspicious stuff in Italy, whereas in reality it's just a guy having a very bad day.
What else happened? Andres Iniesta, I think, finally played his final game for Barcelona. There was much emotion all around.
The photos of him sitting, shoes off, socks off, shin guards off, just at center circle in an empty Camp Nou are pretty captivating.
Maybe if you don't want to leave, maybe stay.
You could.
Maybe do another year.
You could, yeah.
You can sell your wine from wherever.
Yeah, sure.
Have you noticed that all the rumours linking him to Chinese and Japanese teams seem to include that the team will buy loads of cases of the Iniesta wine?
No, but that's outstanding.
It's not really, though, is it? It seems like an odd way for his career, the next step of his career, to be wine-related.
The one that I might be totally wrong on, so I apologize, because I know David Silva does. I believe Andres Iniesta does have some sort of Japanese lineage.
Sure?
I'm not sure, no. I know David Silva does.
You should definitely say it on a podcast if you're not sure.
Because I remember this from a Wikipedia game many years ago, that we all guessed Andres Iniesta, I think, and then it turned out that he also did. I believe I'm correct in saying.
Okay.
So maybe that explains the Japan connection as well. Maybe less so the China.
Or maybe it doesn't if you're completely wrong.
Or maybe it doesn't if I'm completely wrong. There's that too, yeah.
What else we got? Mauro Icardi left out of the Argentina roster for other players' wife-related reasons.
We think.
We're pretty sure.
Yes.
Right? Any other World Cup news bubbling up?
No, I mean the only other one not World Cup related because he's not in the squad as far as I know. Fernando Torres playing his last game for Atletico Madrid. He is linked with moves to a variety of teams, most of them in China or Major League Soccer.
Interesting.
Yep.
I'd welcome him with open arms to Major League Soccer. He's not quite youth transfer fund age, is he? But
he makes he makes more sense at DC United than Wayne Rooney.
Why so?
Because he is going to do like the hold up play a little bit more, but maybe he gets a few more calls. He makes maybe some smarter runs, and then also I'm just being honest, Spanish speaker. He's like that factors into it.
I've seen Darren Mattocks play, and I've seen Patrick Mullins play, and Wayne Rooney or Fernando Torres would improve that team. I've just come down to that. I'm happy for them just to get a better striker. It doesn't matter who it is.
Meh.
Yeah. You maybe.
Yeah. Probably not.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure Patrick Mullins is better than I am. So too Darren Mattocks.
I think Officer Shannon Mullins is better than.
That's fair.
Shall we move on to the total soccer show?
If you're done making yourself laugh, yes, we shall.
Yes.
Yes, we have many reports. We still have some to get to, but the queue has been somewhat cleared out, starting with Anurag Anjaria scouting Andriha Novakovic.
Yes.
We mentioned him earlier, the 21-year-old American attacker on loan at Telstar from Reading.
And part of the US national team squad.
Novakovic and Telstar faced De Graafschap in the Dutch second division playoffs. In spite of a Novakovic brace, Telstar lost 6-5 on aggregate. This concludes a 21-goal season for Andrea, who will now fight for a starting spot at Reading.
Best of luck to him, but we'll see him on Monday in a US shirt. Russell Varner is scouting Alex Mendez, the 17-year-old American midfielder for the LA Galaxy Academy and for Los Dos. Russell Varner says, Scuffed shared a few gifs of Mendez's performance for Los Dos against Phoenix Rising FC, including a play where he faked out Didier Drogba. Russell adds that Mendez already looks like a better defender than 90% of the current Galaxy roster.
He did. I think he did say, is that fair? Should I say that? But I left that part out. Andy Hollums scouting Julian Green, the 22-year-old American forward on loan at Greuther Fürth from VfB Stuttgart. We mentioned him earlier as well. Green scored in the 51st minute Sunday against Heidenheim and earned his team a 1-1 draw, thereby saving them from relegation. Greuther Fürth will remain in 2 Bundesliga, but Green's future is less certain. This was only his third goal in the 2 Bundesliga, so it's hard to imagine he'll crack Stuttgart's lineup this fall.
I mean, I still have trouble picturing him in a US national team jersey just based on where he was when he was first called up and where he is now.
Also, and then also to Andy's point, Stuttgart, I believe, are the ones who did the 5-player, 6-player signing spree. So it makes sense that maybe he gets another loan.
Oh, and while we're talking Germany, there's a DFB Pokal upset, right? Eintracht Frankfurt beat Bayern Munich with Niko Kovac winning his final Frankfurt game against the team that will be employing him next season.
Yes. And did you...
Good for Nico, I want to say.
Did you get my text about Thomas Muller?
Yes. Was it that he said to Jupp Heynckes, I'll see you in October?
Yes. That was his goodbye quote to Jupp Heynckes.
Was that sort of a slight at Niko Kovac?
I think it was meant to be a tongue-in-cheek joke. That seems to be
keeps coming back.
Yes, that seems to be the type that Thomas Muller prefers. Still, though, could be writing on the wall, literally and figuratively.
Todd Brannan is scouting Cameron Carter-Vickers, a.k.a. CCV, the 20-year-old American centre-back for Tottenham Hotspur. Todd says Cameron Carter-Vickers has signed a new contract with Tottenham that runs through 2021. Speculation is that CCV will go out on loan again next season, but the one-year extension seems to indicate he is still part of the long-term plans for Spurs.
Long-term plans. Woo! That's where I am with CCV.
It's what you want.
I'm excited about these things.
Yeah.
James Pearson scouting Mason Toye, 19-year-old American forward for Minnesota United. Mason Toye came on in the 77th minute for Christian Ramirez in the Loons' 3-1 loss to San Jose. The Loons were not great in the attack yet again, but this game was mostly known for the officiating. As pointed out on Twitter by Jeff Reuter, the whole stadium was chanting "The Yellow Team sucks" by the 70th minute, so the unofficial Minnesota tradition of ending every MLS game with boos continues. Booing the referee, that is.
Jonas Lehmann-Karp is scouting Matt Miazga, the 22-year-old American centre-back on loan at Vitesse from Chelsea. I know what happened. I saw it. Jonas says that Matt Miazga, the greatest active 22-year-old player in the world, scored a mean header in Vitesse's 2-1 win over Utrecht. This was Matt's fourth goal of the year and helped send Vitesse to the Europa League qualifiers. Miazga was then called up by Dave Sarachan for the USA's friendly with Bolivia. Jonas concludes, "I take my scouting report seriously. When Matt news breaks, you get it." He is correct.
Yes. This comes from Jonas actually had two different scouting reports, and so basically that last line was apologizing for including two different reports in the same queue. But he was saying, "I take my job seriously."
Have you seen this header?
Yeah,
he's powerful.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like Matt Miazga. I like Jonas Lehmann-Karp. I also like Stephen Kovac scouting Jordan Thiosen Sibachu, the 22-year-old French, emphasizing French, striker for Stade de Reims. In Stade de Reims' final game of their league-winning season, Jordan scored an excellent goal in their win over Nîmes. Sibachu ended the season with 17 goals and 6 assists in 31 starts.
Why are you emphasizing French?
Because he was not included on the France U21 Euro roster. I think it was U21 Euros, but he's listed as an alternate. And when I think Brian Sciaretta reached out to him, or somebody reached out to him to ask him about, because he's U.S. national team eligible, it was apparently made very clear that he is going to exhaust his French options before maybe looking at the USA.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not what we want, is it?
Not so much.
Alex Rendon is scouting Eduard Atuesta, the 20-year-old Colombian midfielder for LAFC. Alex says, in LAFC's home game against Minnesota on May 9th, Atuesta started and scored the first goal in the 2-0 win. His shot may have taken a benevolent deflection or two before beating the keeper, but he showed good composure to set the chance up for himself. Atuesta seems to be impressing Bob Bradley. Hopefully his handball to give up a penalty in the 2-2 draw with NYCFC does not detract from his quality performances so far. I think it does a little though, doesn't it?
Probably a little bit. Michael Wills scouting Julian Brandt, the 21-year-old German attacker for Bayer Leverkusen. With Leverkusen's season now complete, Julian notched 12 goals and 3 assists in all competitions this year, which was good enough to land him on the provisional roster for Germany's World Cup repeat bid.
Something about World Cup repeat bid made me laugh.
You like that, Billy?
Charlie McHugh is scouting Trent Alexander-Arnold, the 19-year-old English right-back for Liverpool. Charlie says, TAA has been named to Gareth Southgate's World Cup roster, which isn't a bad way to cap off a phenomenal year. The winning the Champions League would probably be his preferred sign-up.
Yeah, that was my inclusion there. Because I think Charlie failed to note that one. That's probably the way you want to cap that season off.
You know, winning the World Cup. You could do that
or that too. Yeah, why not? Axel Romain scouting Nathaniel Chalobah, the 23-year-old English midfielder for Watford. Chalobah. After being out since mid-September with a knee injury, Nathaniel was finally able to see the field in Watford's loss to Manchester United on the final day of the season. Nathaniel had been hopeful that he would get on the squad list for Russia this year, but his injuries obviously mean that he will have to wait until the next opportunity.
Wes Kaufman is scouting Ayo Akinyola, the 18-year-old American forward for Toronto. Fans were treated to a 9-goal thriller at Coolray Field on Wednesday night as Atlanta United 2 claimed a 5-4 win against Toronto FC 2. In that goal fest, Akinyola scored his first for the club since 2016. It's a surprise. Mm-hmm. Thanks to a perfectly played cross from Aidan Daniels, Akinyola was able to bundle that home from close range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was surprised by that too. Hopefully he starts getting more games, scoring more goals. Logan Jurgens scouting Ismaila Sarr, the 20-year-old Senegalese winger for Rennes. After a quiet finish of the season for Rennes, it was announced that Sarr made Senegal's World Cup preliminary roster. He is one of 11 attackers on the roster, which also includes Sadio Mane and Mame Biram Diouf.
Ooh, there's some players to play alongside. John Youngblood is scouting Rio Rivaldo Griffiths, the 17-year-old English striker for Tottenham. Rio Griffiths got minutes in the U19 Volksbank Cup as Tottenham won their group, but eventually lost to Red Bull Brazil, forgot about them, and then to Werder Bremen in the third-place match. Griffiths was reportedly offered a professional contract, which may see him with the Spurs U23 team next season.
Alec Brew scouting Davy Selke, the 23-year-old German striker for Hertha Berlin. Selke did not score in Hertha's 6-2 loss to RB Leipzig. He finished the season with 14 goals in 23 games, but Alec hopes that next season will be more consistent, both in terms of his overall performances and his injury status. Alec is also looking forward to a summer filled with numerous links to West Ham and Everton, because Davy Selke is a young striker, and those clubs are always linked with every good striker between the ages of 22 and 28.
But you'd be best not to go.
Yes.
I guess Romelu Lukaku is the one guy that it really worked out for.
Also, yes.
Yeah. Okay, Stanton Thomas is scouting Benjamin Pavard, the 22-year-old French centre-back for Stuttgart. Pavard finished the season playing every minute in the Bundesliga for Stuttgart, helping them finish 7th. For his efforts, he was included in the France squad for Russia.
That'll work.
That one was a bit of a surprise, I think, but very good for the scouting network.
I think so.
We gave him the extra push.
It gives us that cred. Yep.
He got the scouting network bump.
It's all because of that, yes. So well done, Stanton. Jeff Markman scouting Reece Nelson, the 18-year-old English midfielder for Arsenal. Nelson was named the Premier League 2 Player of the Season after scoring 10 goals while helping lead the Young Gunners to the league title as well as the Premier League International Cup final. Nelson,
question: Is that he's the actual Premier League 2 Player of the Season, or is the Arsenal Premier League 2 Player of the Season?
It's a good question. I'm going to say he's the Premier League 2 Player of the Season because I want to give him all the benefits of the doubts that are possible. Nelson has yet to put pen to paper on the contract extension he was excited to sign a few weeks ago, says Jeff. Yeah.
Has he lost his pen?
That's one possible explanation.
Victor Savage is scouting Ricardo Kirchner, the 23-year-old Dutch winger on loan at Den Haag from Lazio. Vic says after a disappointing season cut short by a cruciate injury in September, Kirchner will return to Lazio. But speculation remains that he will be back with Den Haag next season, either on loan or as part of a permanent deal. Since the injury, Kirchner's estimated transfer value has dropped considerably, so that may factor into the type of move Kirchner gets this summer.
Speaking of big moves, final report comes from Manny Alcantara scouting Junior Firpo, the 22-year-old Dominican left-back for Real Betis. Junior Firpo's season came to an early end as he suffered a strained ligament in his left knee and missed Real Betis' final 2 La Liga matches. Firpo is expected to make a full recovery by June and is currently negotiating a contract extension with Real Betis. However, if rumors, that was the plural, if rumors are to be believed, there are at least 2 clubs interested in paying Junior Firpo's 25 million euro release clause. One of those is Arsenal, supposedly.
Right. Dominicans in the Premier League.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. All right.
So too is Christian.
Thank you to everybody who sent in scouting reports today.
See, it all connects.
Yeah. Thank you to everybody for sending the scouting reports. I know we've got more. I believe we had a Vinicius Jr. report come in, so we'll be excited to read that sometime later this week. What's our schedule this week, Tyler? We've got a World Cup Group B preview. We're going to be putting out on, I'm going to say late Wednesday afternoon, Champions League final preview. We'll be with you on Thursday. So that's our schedule. Wednesday and Thursday we'll have preview shows for you. Then Saturday we'll be watching and reviewing the UEFA Champions League final.
Is factual.
If you would like to support the show, you can go to totalsoccershow.com/join. Sign up for a monthly subscription to support TSS. You could be part of the Scouting Network. $10 a month or more, we guarantee to answer a listener question. If you're waiting for your player to scout, I apologise. I've been slow getting to it. I sent out some assignments over the weekend. Don't you shake your head at me. Please email me if you're waiting. Daryl, Daryl, at totalsoccershow.com. Also, a reminder about our sponsors. It's theathletic.com/TSS for 40% off the hottest new soccer website in all of the United States.
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed.
And also Blue Apron.
And it's blueapron.com/TSS to get your first 3 meals free with Blue Apron. Maybe you could eat some Blue Apron while you read stories on the Athletic app.
Synergy.
There you go. Synergy. Yeah. Synergy. Just like Red Bulls and their pressing and whatever's in those energy drinks. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Goodness, that's what's in them. Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, are you hoping they'll sponsor us?
Yeah.
Listeners,
why not?
Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again on Wednesday when it's World Cup Group B Preview Day.